Well, think for a moment about a hobby of yours. How much time can you spend engaged in that hobby? Recently, I went looking through the couple of shelves that I have dedicated in my basement to tricks and illusions, and I came across one that I hadn't really used in a while. It's a key that mysteriously turns over in your hand. With no words of exaggeration, I spent a good 40 minutes just having that key turn over and over and over in my hand. Alicia is accustomed to the fact that if I tell her I'm going to go downstairs and practice some of my tricks, she probably won't see me for a couple of hours. For you, it might be music. You start playing your instrument, and all of a sudden you seem to lose all track of time. It might be gardening, it might be writing, it might be hiking. But whatever it is, we all have hobbies or activities that we enjoy spending time with. We have people that we enjoy spending time with, people that we get together with and lose all track of time. We get together for a tea or a coffee, and then all of a sudden 4 hours goes by and we don't know where it went. Well, what about our time with God? Do you find that same dynamic at hand? Or is it something that you wrestle with, that you fight with, and even sometimes engage begrudgingly? You may be aware, November is our stewardship month. It's the time where we think about what we offer to God and what we offer to the church. And we're going to spend the next couple weeks looking at that. Next week, we're going to look at the talents that we bring and offer to God. And then we're going to look at our gifts and our treasures that we offer to the church and to God. See, but having a great talent and donating lots of money doesn't mean anything if they are not firmly embedded in the desire to connect with God in our time. And so this morning, let's look at how we offer to God our time. And I think our gospel reading has something to say about that. So I invite you to open your Bibles and turn to Matthew 25. It is known as the parable of the 10 bridesmaids, parable of the 10 virgins, or 10 maidens, no matter, depending on what your translation translates that word as. It's a very interesting parable, but it makes a little bit more sense when we understand the question that Jesus is answering. So way back in chapter 24, one of the disciples asks Jesus a question. What will the signs of the end of the age be? And Jesus enters into a long discussion, part of which includes this parable. Verse 1, then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. Now that would have been a very familiar situation for all of the disciples. They would have completely understood what was going on because it was part of the regular marriage ritual and custom of the Jewish people. The bridesmaids, they would wait in the bride's home for the bridegroom to come. And the wedding celebration took place as the bridegroom really came and to meet his bride. And so the bridesmaids would wait outside with their lamps, meet the bridegroom and his attendants, and usher them into the house where the wedding banquet would begin and where he would meet his bride. The twist that Jesus makes, because he's always making a twist in his parables, the twist is this. 5 of them were foolish, 5 of them were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. Well, let me ask you, what do you think the oil represents? This is one of the parables that a lot of people have a hard time interpreting. Some say oil is faith. Some say oil is good works that are done in life. But I think the specifics of what the oil is or is not, it's really not the point of this parable. Because the parable lies in the difference between the 5 bridesmaids having intention and desire to be in the presence of the bridegroom whenever he comes, and the 5 bridesmaids who are kind of just going through the motions. Jesus describes the 5 oil-deficient bridesmaids as fools, as foolish. And that's not a comment on intellectual capacity. It's a word that's used to describe a manner of life and behavior that does not acknowledge, accept, or interact with God's presence in life. There's a fabulous psalm. A fool says in their heart, there is no God. Again, that's not about how smart you are. It's about whether you engage with God in your life, whether you spend time with God. Jesus is describing people who have no desire for God in their life. He calls them foolish. Conversely, he calls the bridesmaids who brought oil with them, who have the desire to interact and meet the bridegroom when he comes, wise. And interestingly, that word for wise, when you look at it, the 5 bridesmaids who bear oil are actually coming from Alberta. It's just this amazing coincidence. It's fabulous. You know, that's the challenge that has to be raised within us. Which group do you belong to? Now, think about this. Obviously, you're sitting in church. So it could be fairly safe to say that you all have faith and are waiting for Christ to come again and wish to interact with God in your life. Well, what's the evidence of that? Matthew Henry, who is a church commentator, says in his commentary on this passage that the evidence of our Christian faith is shown in the very things we attend ourselves to. What time do you give to God throughout your day? Do you consciously engage with him? Do you make the effort to speak with God in prayer, to spend moments with God in silence, to make Jesus a part of your everyday life? I remember talking with some friends of mine in university. At that point, everybody knew that I was becoming a priest, so eventually the topic of church would always kind of come up. And a bunch of my friends would always be very quick to say, "Oh, I just haven't found a church that is right for me yet." And that's understandable. It can take a while to find a church that you feel comfortable with, that you feel engaged with, that you feel you could make your church home. However, it is almost impossible to find that church if you refuse to get out of bed on Sunday mornings. Right? It's kind of the same thing if I lament to Alicia that, "I'm sorry, honey, I am just so busy that I have no time to wash the dishes or to take out the trash or do the laundry. And yet I always have a couple of hours to spend with my hobby." Eventually, the truth is evident. There's a problem here. Eventually, the places where I choose to spend my time actually speaks to the activities and the people that I find most important. And so those who would say that I haven't found a church even though they don't get up on Sunday mornings or go out